So we wanted to sit down and talk to you guys all about that path of purchase and what does it mean to get people to pay for content on the web. To give you a little background on all of us, I'm going to have each of us kind of get a little idea of where we're from. But to start, my background, I've been in the marketing and advertising world for 25 plus years. I started out, I was at Fox Sports, helped launch a bunch of their cable sports networks, Fox Sports Net, FX, Fuel, Fox College Sports, Speed Vision, Speed Channel, FoxSports.com back in the day. I left Fox and launched a regional sports network down in the Mid-Atlantic for the Royals Nationals, ran that. And then I ran my own marketing company after that. We did a lot of stuff with some major brands, K-Swiss, if you remember, Kenny Powers, viral videos. We did a lot of awards for that. I worked with Stonos and did a lot of work for them. From that, I started to consult for a group called Learfield Sports, controls the rights to over 100 colleges around the country, built out their national sales force, and came on board them full-time. Once I did that, I got a call from the UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship, to help lead their marketing partnerships division, and left Learfield, became the head of the UFC, and did that for a couple of years. And now I most recently just started up with ETN Media, Street League Skateboarding, which is the pro skateboarding league for.
I'm going to switch your
okay.
out. Yeah, for your audio.
So, as I was saying, I'm at Street League Skateboarding, ETN Media, and we are the World Skateboard League. We're actually control both the Vans Park Series and the Street League Skateboarding Series, the two different disciplines of skateboarding that are going to be actually in the Olympics in 2020, which is the first time skateboarding on the Olympics. We'll be running all the qualifying events over the next 2.5 years going into Tokyo in 2020. So we're building out a OTT network called ETN, which is all about skateboarding for skateboarders by skateboarders, and we charge people a monthly fee for that. And we've acquired over 400,000 people have downloaded our app, and we have a lot of them paying us a monthly fee to drive some revenue there. So we're creating a lot of content for that. So I wanted to have a conversation today and talk to some experts in this world about how to drive more revenue and get consumers to pay for content on a monthly basis, or pay for this content just on any kind of basis. So I'm going to start with Lee and have him kind of give a little background on himself. But before I do that, I guess I wanted to ask each of them kind of a personal note, kind of something about them so you can get to know them a little better, but just on my personal side, so I can start out with this. I was on the flight out and I was Googling myself, which I was trying to figure out, like, what are the people are going to see when they come out to speak at this conference? And one of the first things that came up was an article that was about myself back when I was 16 years old, and my dad took us across the country to all the baseball parks. We met all the players of his day and the current players, and they actually, Ted Williams, who's the last 400 hitter, gave me batting instruction, and we met a bunch of other legends of the sport. And I probably wrote a book about that. There was an article in the LA Times, and that came up first, which was kind of amazing to me when I typed in my name. So that's a little history on me. But now I'm going to give you a little turn over to Lee and have him give a little idea about himself and about Drund, and so you guys have a little idea of what he's doing.
Thank you. Just okay. So a little story to get to know me. I have very short hair today because about a month ago I lost a wager to my youngest son, who's 11, to shave my head if he beat me in a head-to-head match of eliminations in a game called Fortnite. I did have a lot of hair at that point, but he, over that evening, owned me. I seriously thought I was better than he was. Since then, short hair later, and if I don't wax it down, it turns into an afro right now. So that's a little bit about me. I have a tech background. I founded a company that I'm currently operating called Drund. Our job actually is to provide services, product, and use technology to help drive conversions or whatever goals for our partners. So this is right up my alley. And prior to this, I owned another digital services agency. This is back before mobile, pre-2010, where we were built to essentially provide digital services for large brands at that time in the web space. So we had to build large-scale web projects to help them during that phase of when technology was all. Currently, the hot thing was .coms. Prior to that, I founded and sold a business in finance and another one in development. So I've been, I guess, a startup junkie to some degree, or I really like the pain of creating new companies. I think that might be my a little bit about who I am and what I'm currently interested in.
Hi, my name is Alan Watson. I'm originally from London. I came here about 8 years ago after working in London for Goldman Sachs. I've always been a Wall Street guy. I only been in digital for the last couple of years. I originally came over here for 2 weeks, and I'll give you the interesting bit now. I came over here for 2 weeks, and Goldman is notorious for saying, "Can you please stay longer?" And they kept saying to me, "You're not going to stay longer, not stay longer." And the day before my flight, they asked me to stay for 3 years. And the best thing about that was it was like a witness relocation program, because they said, "Okay, give us the keys to your apartment, give us the keys to your car. We're going to have everything shipped over to you. We're going to sell your car. We're going to rent your apartment. Everything's done." And I just disappeared off the face of the earth from London, so it worked pretty well. The way I tripped up into digital was I invested by a private equity in a company over here about 4 years ago to do social audio, and they didn't convert as well as I'd hoped they would. So they spent about $3 or $4 million. They didn't have a revenue plan, and obviously if you don't have revenue, then you die. So they basically they went belly up. I recognised there was an opportunity to create monetization for content for the influencer in social media. So I started Whole Media Group. Whole Media Group allows content creators to monetize their content, retake control of the power of narrative, and get paid for it handsomely. At the moment you have Facebook, who are worth $500 billion. You have Snapchat, who are obviously worth tens of billions. Twitter the same. But most of the content that the influencers put on there, they don't get paid for, unless you're a Khaled or a Kardashian. So we have hundreds of influencers, everyone across sport, religion, business, politics, music, a lot of rappers, and we allow them to monetize their content. They get paid the majority of the money, so we turn the model when it's upside down, that's on its head. There's no ads on there, so there's no clickbait, no fake news, etc. And if somebody gets a 3% conversion from their peak social media, then they can, with 50,000, 100,000 followers, they can make themselves $1 million, $2 million a year. So that's a bit about me.
Thanks, you guys. So, two
Hey,
pretty good
I'm
experts.
sorry to interrupt you again. It's just, we're having technical difficulty, and I don't want, I mean, you got such valuable content, I don't want it to be muffled. Yes, but how about if you just take these off and just speak directly into it, just like a mic?
Yeah.
Sorry it's inconvenient, but I think it's going to be better quality. So let's try that.
Can everybody hear us now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So, you know, in talking about monetization, you have two gentlemen here who have a lot of experience. I've been in the marketing and advertising space for quite a long time. We want to kind of delve into what makes, in our minds, successful campaigns and successful products that people want to buy and purchase. So I'm just going to first throw out to both of you guys, and we can start with either one of you. But who do you think is a leader in this space, and who do you guys look to that's really doing it right now?
Well, from our side, it's Patreon. Patreon have a platform which allows people to follow their YouTubers, whoever they want, whether it be a musician or somebody just creating content. They allow them to become a patron. They pay a certain amount per month. But they've just raised $60 million at a $450 million valuation last September. So they've been very successful. They pay an awful lot of money out to their influencers. Their top influencers get paid $80,000 to $100,000 a month for what they're putting on YouTube, basically for free. And then on esports makes billions of dollars per year on microtransactions. It allows people like Lee to follow different gamers, get cheats, etc., learn tips on how to do things. That obviously creates millions of dollars for the top gamers.
My opinion for who I think currently is probably the technical leader to helping brands drive significant revenue from their content would be BAM. If you're not familiar with BAM, BAM was a spin-off off of the MLB group, and Disney, other people are involved with BAM. They've been very successful at taking the WWE and helping them drive their subscription model for a lot of year-over-year growth. I mean, into almost, I think they're over 100 million projected this next year. BAM is also, involved in some other ventures, and probably from the esports side, Twitch is undeniably right now just a major player using their product helping drive lots of value and revenue for streamers, and they're doing a great job at it currently. So my answers will be more technical, I guess, focused or biased, because I'm not much from the marketing side, but the technical side, those are the two places I would see as industry leaders.
Twitch is owned by Amazon, so there's a nice tie-in there with the whole purchase intent, and people are purchasing products. I look at Amazon as probably the best of the business, and if anybody here is a Prime member, could we raise the hands who's a Prime member here? How quickly they recognize what you like and get you to purchase more and make it very simple on how to purchase. But yeah, it's interesting to when you're looking at these groups and what they're doing well and what makes them kind of so successful. I think Lee, we were talking about it earlier. What do you really want to concentrate on when you're trying to develop that content? In your mind, the technical side, and then Alan maybe on the more marketing side and content side. So
I have a history of what's called HCI, human-computer interactions, which is a fancy way of trying to put what is a person's experience with its technology's form factor, and how does that create some sort of interaction or value. So there's a lot of things that can frankly create a bounce. I did this prior to the mobile world and when it was all web-based. So when you're trying to create a conversion, whatever that conversion is, either keep your attention stay there longer, create a subscription, or a buy, like a purchase on Amazon. From a technical standpoint, we have to go through the consumer journey. What form factor are they on? The details of anything that can create friction, anything that can create confusion. That could be color saturation, font size, small things like that, or something that creates uncertainty or instability in the consumer's experience with your brand. So in that, as an example, if I want to buy something on a mobile phone, a very small form factor, right? It's not like a floating thing on the desktop. Native apps have a lot more capacity to make that feel secure and seamless. You can pretty much do the same thing in a browser, but sometimes the data has to load differently in those windows. And if a consumer feels concerned, even for a second, or if it takes just a little too long to load, that creates some friction or an uncertainty. So for me and for what we do, we are always very concerned about how do we make that faster and seamless so the user can more quickly engage with the content, and then not just engage with it, possibly convert to whatever purpose that brand has. So those are the small technical details that sometimes are frankly overlooked by some brands. They're not paying attention to those small nanosecond interactions that inside someone's mind creates a bit of fear or doubt. And once that starts to happen, you start losing customers all over the place, and especially at scale. So that's one of the things that I focus on.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about right now the facial recognition or putting your thumb on to purchase a product on your phone. Like it's that one step, one click, it's much better, and you see a lot higher engagement rates rather than you have to go to a checkout window and then input your data and all those steps. And if there's like a flicker on the screen or something happens or it doesn't go through or load right, losing content, losing people, but yeah, I think that's very important. Alan, I know on your side, how do you?
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100% on the friction, on the purchase friction. You need to make sure that it's as easy for people as possible. With us, we have some influencers who've got tens of millions of followers on Instagram. The idea is we try and get them to put content on Instagram which drives them to holler. Their followers go over there, they're super fans, 3 to 5% ideally is our target number. And once they get over to holler, it needs to be seamless for them. We looked into different ways of getting people to pay. The worst thing about going through and putting a thumbprint on there is that you give up a certain amount of revenue. It costs 30% basically through Google Apps, the App Store and Google Play to get people to sign up and do the processing of the payments, etc. But as Lee said, if 2 or 3 people drop off, then it ends up costing you way more money. So although it's a pain to have to do it, the friction, when there's lower friction, you guarantee to get more people following you. The more people following you, then the better content because you're more motivated to put stuff on the platform. And then the fewer steps you have, the better it is, the simpler it is.
It's great. Yeah, that path of purchase, again, is like so important, and thinking through every little step. I mean, at our side, we're constantly going into those details of what's that first step when they come to an app store or they go to purchase something? What's the next step once the screen comes up? What happens? How are you motivating them before that to even get to that point where they go and they download your app or download your video, your content? Why? What's the impetus for them to even go there and say, hey, I want to purchase this or push more? But I think Sue, as for your answers there. In terms of techniques that maybe people here could use or that you guys see the industry using, I'd love to hear comments from you. That how are people what do you think are little kind of things that people could do that will make huge improvements or just little improvements, but they mean a lot. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts.
I'll give more of like a white paper case study that we've done. It wasn't a case study, it's an actual partner client that we had years ago in the nonprofit space. And this organization had 40,000+ members across the United States. They never asked them to pay for anything. So there is going to be significant friction once you go from, hey, all this stuff is free and available to now we want you to give us money in some sort of way. And our advice, based upon a lot of other best practices, was to not, the psychographic of a buyer is based upon something that they've anchored with your brand. So if it's free already, trying to get them to buy, and one of the techniques that we pushed them to was bundling value so they didn't feel like they were being ripped off for something they already got for free in the first place. So we asked them to go to a couple of their partners, sorry, this is a little sketchy, to bundle some additional value to the membership that was already free. If they upgraded, they got even more value. Who's speaking there?
The box.
Can you say that again, what you just said?
Yeah.
So bundling. The consumers currently are being trained on the freemium model by very large organizations, right? Google, Apple, everyone is doing it to a degree, Amazon. So they don't understand the $1 billion worth of infrastructure that it takes to deliver that very quick transaction, essentially. So the moment an organization has to ask for money for something that theoretically was always free, it gets to be a very dicey situation. So in our case, as an example, there was a nonprofit that I was working with at scale. They had a lot of members. They were giving out content for free for over a decade. Now they wanted to drive revenue from that same content. And my initial advice was, we need to find a way to not incur psychological pain or shock to your consumers. How to do that, in our opinion at that time, was to ask them, because we were the technical side and we suddenly became the strategy side, tech is supposed to create a transaction or some sort of solve a problem, but that doesn't solve the problem of buying. It sometimes can help it, sometimes can hurt it. So we asked them to bundle value, where They took their existing content that was free, they went to a couple partners, they brought in extra value for the existing free membership, and then if they wanted to upgrade and get this extra content that they weren't normally available, we asked them to invest more into extra content and actual tangible value that they bundled together. So they never changed what was free, we asked them to add something else, because that level of cognitive dissonance for their buyer never occurred because nothing changed the state of their relationship. But we did drive from 40,000 members, a significant amount of people suddenly subscribed to something they never had to pay for before. They still got it, but it drove revenue from their content. They needed to invest more and bundle more value. So that was one of the techniques that we employed. We didn't really employ that, but we advised them to do, using technology to kind of like wall it off, if that makes sense. Those type of things, those features, and to instantiate like, hey, you want this extra thing? That's what our tech could do. That was helpful to them to help drive extra revenue from something that was already free. So I would probably caution brands, if they already are putting it out, to be very careful about how they go and ask for money after something is already free. And frankly, almost anything is free if you look hard enough for it. So, adding extra value and investing more is what we would probably suggest. So it's a clear value to the end consumer during that journey.
My turn on the box. We see it slightly differently. We don't really see anything as being free. There's always a payoff where you have to, as a user, looking at stuff and consuming content, you have to say, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to watch a 15-second Toyota ad? Do I want to have pop-ups on something I searched for earlier on Amazon? Do I want to have Criteo follow everything I do and recommend I purchase something all the time? And if you're watching a 10-minute video on YouTube, do you want to be interrupted halfway through, etc.? Obviously, YouTube gives you the opportunity to sign up so you don't have the ads. But for us, we've said to the influencers, look, the moment it looks free, and because it looks free, you don't get paid by the major platforms. If you want to get paid, then charge subscription fees but have no ads. No ads, just access. Because we know that, as Lee said earlier, the friction point, if something does take a nanosecond too long, if an ad comes up and it takes too long, or it pauses, or it stalls, then people don't want to consume. They flick on to the next thing. Studies have shown, I think it's 16 seconds the average attention span on a piece of content, video, whatever. So for us, if we can get the free model, which is Instagram mainly these days, if you've got tens of millions of followers on Instagram and you're not getting paid for content, then you need to use that to drive people to some way where you are going to be paid. Because that's a great platform for your brand, but as we say I meet with influencers every day, whether it be pop stars or NFL quarterbacks or rappers, whatever, and I say to them, but this is ego and this is bank. Do you want 7 million followers on Instagram, which you don't get paid for, or do you want 150,000 followers on Holler, where you get paid $1.82 million a year? And you have to have that offset. So I think the path for us, the path to payment, is to use the freemium model, which is actually a different platform, and get influencers to use that to drive people to our platform so they do eventually benefit. Because there's no point putting the content out there if you're not going to get paid, because it doesn't matter whether you're a singer, a sports person, or a business person. Business can have a longer lifespan, but if you're a celebrity, your lifespan is finite. So you've got, it used to be Paris Hilton, now it's Kim Kardashian. It used to be Eddie Murphy, now it's Kevin Hart. You've got maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years, maybe 10 years if you're lucky. So you monetize that content where you can. So you have to use the platforms to your advantage.
Thanks, you guys. That was really interesting. Keep the box over there so you guys can, people can hear you. In terms of, the techniques, that's great. And why do you think people decide to purchase? Like, what's the big motivating factor? And I know this can go any number of ways, but sometimes you see a couple little things that really, it comes down to really simple little pieces that dive into, and those are really deciding factors. They said, in our experience, it seems like there's like one moment that pushes people over to subscribe to us. I think that's a culmination, but a lot of times we'll see, like, we'll do a special event or something, and then that person's like, okay, I have to see this event, and I don't want to miss it. So we we see conversions that way. I don't know, in your experience, is there ways that, what are those, things that kind of push people over to actually making that purchase?
So let me qualify this. I'm going to use examples I think all of us probably have some experience with. I think there are a lot of intrinsic factors that can create conversion to purchase. But there's a lot of them. For instance, if we use HBO as a good case study, you're not really buying HBO anymore, right? You're buying a window of time to watch Game of Thrones. That is a driver. It's exclusivity. You can only watch it through their platform. They have great partnerships with telcos. You're not getting around that easily, right? So they'll use exclusivity of, unique content within a window of time, and they try to make it easier for you to acquire that through channels that they already have partnerships with to make sure they extract value. And through that exclusivity is how they can get you to convert. Now that is, a high interest piece of content that they're always producing is very expensive. That is one motivation that we definitely know drives. But if you also look at traditional broadcasting, as a techie myself, forever, for all intents and purposes, there are things that are not worth the effort to get that you're just willing to buy. And that's where convenience comes in at. So we'll look at the music industry. So when we're talking about music in my company, we have to really think about, when it was being pirated by Napster versus now where it's easily streamable on an app like through Spotify or Pandora. There's a convenience factor and a volume factor there that makes people buy or share because they can share playlists back and forth with their friends. They don't have to download anything. So convenience is also one of the motivations that we've seen that technology can help enable to actually create a instance that you would actually upgrade or purchase, because you can get ads on Pandora and don't have to pay for it. But if you want a convenience, if you can create enough of those and have that targeted using good technology, those are two examples of techniques to actually create someone for free to buy. You can advertise it all over the place, but there has to be some sort of driver that helps them actually convert to buy. So I would probably use those as examples of specific types of motivations to actually get someone to buy from free instead of pirating somewhere else. I'm talking about pirating because I'm a tech guy, and that's just been part of the industry.
So Alan, I know you were talking about and I know you can answer this, but we were talking about microtransactions as being a big piece of this, but gaming, you're doing a great job of it, but I mean, you can go, I know you'd be going some different direction here, but I'd love to hear.
Yeah, no, so as Lee was saying about Twitch has been incredibly successful. As have Patreon, driving hundreds of millions of dollars, billions net in Twitch for microtransactions. People are used to now putting their thumb on a phone, paying $1.99 or 99 cents or $5.99 or whatever. Everyone uses their mobile. Most people use their mobile devices to buy coffee at Starbucks, etc. It's just become a very seamless way for people to interact and buy and get exactly what they want. For us on the why do people pay for content, we found four main reasons: inspiration, motivation, aspiration, and education. People want to be motivated, they want to learn how to do something. Maybe they just need, maybe Tony Robbins or a Tim Grover. They want motivation, they want the aspiration, they want to see. We're rappers out there with all their bling and their nice cars, etc. A lot of the guys who follow them want to see what they could probably achieve if they get in the industry. We've found that a lot of micro-influencers who've got 10,000 to 50,000 followers do very well when they put out their content on the aspiration.
Thank you guys for being up here. I wanted to kind of open it up to everybody here for questions. I know we only have 30 minutes, so I don't know what we are on time-wise. So we have like 5 more minutes, but I'd love to open this up and just see if anybody has questions for us and get hopefully we can answer them.
Or can I just talk loud?
You can talk loud.
So it says on there, and I know it doesn't have to be buying content monthly. I'm just curious. I'm part of an agency where the monthly model is actually something that we leverage quite a bit. So I'm just wondering if you're working with brands to get them to decide to buy content, what would you say is differentiators for a long-term content play or a more elaborate strategy package that you're trying to get them to buy into, which could have extra zeros to the cost versus something that is more of a monthly play. And I don't know if that's something you guys can speak to, but based on the title, I was hoping that maybe that was going to be something.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys-
So I think I'm going to answer this right, if I understand your question. So one of the things which is important to us is authenticity. If you have someone giving content out on Twitter, it could be an intern, it could be a social media manager, could be anybody. It's most likely, if it's a celebrity, not them most of the time, because it's a monochrome platform and there's no tone there. So you don't understand exactly what somebody's doing. I know Hillary Clinton during the presidential campaign, you knew it was her when she put HC afterwards at the end of the comment. So for us, the authenticity is really important, and that helps people. So on your brands, at the moment, you may be, LeBron James may be paid X amount of dollars to do a Jaguar car campaign for 6 months, and then he may be seen driving around in a Mercedes-Benz. And that's not an authentic message a brand is giving out. So by being on a platform where you don't have ads and you just have brand relationships and brand partnerships, you can actually authentically see what somebody does in their daily life. Because if LeBron's driving around in a Mercedes, then just go to Mercedes and say, look, Mercedes is my favorite car. I want to be seen driving this around. Let's do a deal. And that's a lifetime agreement. Whereas if you just have that 6-month span of sponsoring something, whether it be Nikes or Reeboks or ASICs or Ford Motors or Toyota, etc., then you not get the authenticity. So that one word to me is the most important thing on helping brands have longevity with their customers.
I don't know if did that answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to it more from an influencer side. I'm just wondering, what about on like their own sites, like on their own personal blog on the site or something like that? If you're publishing your own content, not to
In terms of the content actually that they would publish?
yeah, just from a
What they
monetary
would-
standpoint, for a long-term deal.
So on our side with the skateboarding, we're creating like unique long-term series that drive this. And I know that we're spending a lot on production and producing these things, but it seems to be creating those special opportunities that you can't find anywhere else. And if you guys, I don't know if you're working with a brand or with a celebrity, it can be different, but a lot of times it's saying you're trying to create like unique items that that aren't out there. So again, you're reinventing yourself all the time, but that's part of the game that we're in is you're trying to keep people interested. But there can be storylines that you can set up that will go throughout the year, and I think that's something that we've tried to do is create storylines that are with our athletes and around skateboarding and maybe locations that people skate that we're kind of highlighting or tricks that people are doing, and make that a storyline that lasts more than just a one-shot kind of deal. But I don't know if that helps. Any other questions? Hopefully we gave you guys some good insights. I know this is a very high level kind of conversation, but would love to talk to anybody after if you guys need, and we'll be around. Thanks so much.